Hey YouTube, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the different parenting styles and how to differentiate between them, so stay tuned. Okay, so let's jump into it. Out of the 4 styles of parenting, which style is considered the healthiest parenting style? That would be the authoritative parenting. What's the difference between the authoritative parenting and the authoritarian parenting? So they're very similar in name and it can mix some people up, but how they're similar, both establish rules and guidelines that children are expected to follow. However, with the authoritative parenting, they're more nurturing, responsive, supportive, and forgiving rather than punishing, aka they're not quick to grab the belt. Talks with their children to hear their side of things about a situation, aka the parents aren't quick to grab the belt. And the outcome, so as children continue to develop, as they go through, teenage years, adulthood, right? They grow up to be happy, capable, and successful. An example of this is if parents ground their child for stealing, parents with an authoritative style will ask their child why they stole to understand the child's perspective, explain why stealing is wrong, and have the child return the stolen goods. Side note, Google says the meaning of tative means tending to talk. So authora, right, kind of mean authority. Authority isn't bad. It's about creating structure, aka rules. And tative is talking. So the context, which is the parenting style. So when we think of authoritative, we're thinking about authority plus talking within the context of parents, such as, the parenting style. So while there is structures, rules, disciplines, right? They're also talking, communicating as parents, because that's the context with their children. So a healthy style of parenting is this exactly, because it's not about just kind of disciplining and everything like that. We want to be able to talk and explain to children of why something is or not, a good idea or not, and putting appropriate punishment when needed and when necessary. But we want to be able to communicate with children. And as parents, you want to establish structure for your children to adhere to and talk with them about / explain the pros and cons of their behavior so they understand why their behavior is considered good or bad, so that they can learn from it and grow up to become positive and productive members of society. And as we get into authoritarian parenting, failure to follow the rules results in punishment, aka they quick to grab the belt. This doesn't really communicate with their children to explain why their behavior is bad, aka because I said so, or again, quick to grab the belt. And the outcome of this, of children that kind of grow up in that style of parenting, follow the rules of society, but less happy, less social skills, and lower self-esteem. So they kind of go through it, right? Where on one end, they're getting that discipline, that structure, right? But on the other end, they're not getting that communication piece. They're not really being heard. They're not really being valued as human beings at the end of the day. And that stuff sticks with us. An example of this would be, as parents, you want to establish structure for your children to adhere to. If the child breaks the rules or acts up, parents with an authoritarian style of parenting will not hear the child out. They will go directly to punishment. Think of a parent receiving a call from the school saying that their child got into a fight. The parent is not talking with their child about what happened to hear their side of the story. The parent is focused on, you are not supposed to be fighting. I don't care what happened. You got me leaving my job early to come down here for this. You are grounded. And if you have experience kind of growing up under that parenting style, or just know other people that grew up under that parenting style, it does leave some unresolved, feelings, because again, that child, that teenager, that person, they're still a person, right? They still want to be able to express themselves and say their side. And this is not to say that their side is the teenager is objectively right, but more so we want to hear their perspective, and talk about it. And again, this isn't saying that, this doesn't mean that they're not going to experience some punishment, some grounding or anything like that, but it's more so being able to have their side of the story heard. But again, with authoritarian parenting, that's not the case. Now going to permissive parenting, few demands on their children. Relationship is more of a friend rather than a parent. So they're nice, friendly, nurturing. They communicate, but much less structure for their children. Outcome, issues with authority due to poor self-regulation, meaning they struggle to control their behavior or they act up, which gets them into trouble with authority, low happiness, perform poorly in school, right? So again, think about it, right? You're being, as the parent is being their friend to their children. And that's problematic in nature because of the boundaries. And, we may say, Ray, why is being seen as your child's friend a bad thing? Boundaries. Parents are the first teachers. Children need to learn to have discipline and structure so they know how to act right within society and ultimately grow up to become civilized, successful adults. Imagine trying to instill discipline and structure into one of your friends. Think about the natural challenges that would come with trying to accomplish that. The friend sees you as their peer, their equal. Children need to see parents as the authority figure and adults within society, such as, teachers, law enforcement, etc., as authority figures as well. Those who don't tend to have issues with authority figures throughout life, which results in many different issues. Because again, think about it, right? Where if growing up, if our parents are like our friend, our best friend, they're being nice, nurturing, kind, while all that's good, we're lacking that discipline, that structure, right? And let's think about that, right? If we ask a child, hey, what do you want for dinner? Right? They're going to say, I want the cookies, the cake, the candy, and everything, right? And if we're their friend, we're like, oh yeah, you can have this and stuff. Oh, you want McDonald's, you want all this, like fast food and all that stuff, right? In the child's mind, they're like, yeah, like mommy, daddy, they're great, cool. But they're missing that discipline, that structure of eating their veggies so that, they can grow up healthy and not have issues later down the line if we were being our child's friend and just kind of give them whatever food they want, let them go to bed whatever time they want, right? Because that's going to result in issues down the line versus establishing that discipline, that structure. Not saying they can never have, like pizza and all that other stuff, right? But we want to make sure that, it's within a controlled environment rather than just being their friend, essentially saying like, oh yeah, because you're my friend, you can, have essentially whatever you want. And as we continue to go down, we get to the uninvolved parenting. And it's exactly like it sounds, uninvolved. So few demands, low responsiveness, little communication. Parents fulfill basic needs. So like that food, shelter, making sure their children, have a roof over their head, food in their, belly, all that stuff, right? So parents fulfill basic needs for their children, but are uninvolved in their life. Outcome, children do the worst, rank the lowest out of all the parenting styles. They have low self-esteem, poor self-control, and less competent than their peers. Ray, why is uninvolved parents considered the worst parenting style? Simply put, the children have no guidance or direction in how to function in life. Our first teacher in life are supposed to be our parents. Without that guidance, structure, and understanding through communicating with our parents, children grow up to figure out things on their own. Think about how many challenges and significant challenges can come from that, right? So because parents are supposed to be the first teachers that, we experience, right, when we're growing up, if that's not there, meaning whether they're just not there physically or if they're there, but again, it's very, they, do the paying the bills, shelter, clothes on our back, right? But we're not communicating with them. Is they have no idea what's going on in our lives. They're not really showing any interest. It's more so you guys communicate on a as needed type of basis. Think about where do you go for that information as the child? You're going to figure it out however you figure it out. And think of how many challenges can come with that, right? And I put the significant challenges because again, growing up, life being a learning lesson, it's really tough when you're trying to figure out life on your own, when you're a child and you grow into a teenager, etc. Because those habits that are developed in those formative years, think about how they manifest themselves later into adulthood and then having all those troubles, those complications, right? And again, because that foundation isn't being set, because the parents are uninvolved, it just creates a very, very challenging time for a child to grow up in that environment. So again, a nice way to remember this for authoritative, I think of tative. Tative meaning to talk, meaning, you communicate with your children. You still have the authority, right? As far as the discipline, the structure, the rules, right? But you also have the tative, which is the talking, the communicating piece of it. So you're not just dishing out punishments. You're hearing the child's perspective on what kind of happened if a situation like that occurs, and you're explaining to them why what they did is good or not so good. And of course, depending on what it is, proceeding with a punishment. And ultimately, we're teaching the child right from wrong, and again, why they're getting the outcome that they're getting, so that they can learn from it and ultimately grow up into be healthy adults. When we talk about, and you can even remember, just say Tyrion. I tried Googling this one and I didn't get like a clean definition, but when I hear Tyrion, I almost think of like a tirade almost a bit. But with authoritarian, there's still the authority piece to it, but with the other aspect, if we think of it as Tyrion as like a tirade, it's do as I say. No real communication. So you're getting the rules, the structure, the discipline, but the child isn't being heard, right? With this parenting style, the child isn't being heard. It's do as I say, punishment, punishment, punishment. And that creates other issues for the child growing up into later adulthood, where again, they fall into the sense of being less happy, less social skills, literally because they're not really communicating that much. It's more so I got to do as I'm told type of thing, and lower self-esteem, because if your perspective isn't being valued, right, it's easy to say kind of like, okay, if my perspective isn't being valued, maybe I'm not valuable. So I'll kind of just keep that to myself and not express our emotions. And we know how that can turn out if we're not necessarily expressing our emotions, how that can all be kind of bottled up a bit. And then when we go again to permissive parenting, permissive, I kind of think of permission, where relationship is more of a friend rather than a parent. It's you need those boundaries. You can't really be your child's friend. You can like them, enjoy them as a person, right? But being their friend, they need that discipline. They need that structure. And we need to establish that so that they can grow up to be healthy adults, rather than just saying like, oh yeah, we're friends and everything like that. And then again, going now to the uninvolved parenting, basic needs are fulfilled. They're met. You got a roof over your head, food to eat, shelter, like all of that, clothes on your back, all that, right? But again, it's there's no teaching. There's no real nurturing communication. They don't really know, the parents in this style don't really know what's going on in their children's life, and they're kind of almost like, in a way, when you think about it, it's kind of like roommates in a way. It's like the parents are doing their thing, children over here doing their thing. If they need something in particular, they'll come communicate, but then they just go their separate ways again. Kind of creates challenges. So the healthiest parenting style out of all of them, again, is the authoritative parenting. Okay, guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Like I always say, you got this. You got this. We're going to learn this information. We're going to keep doing our practice questions a day, and we're going to go in there and pass these exams. You got this. Don't forget to share with a social work friend, because we don't want to be licensed by ourselves. I'll see you guys next video. Bye.